What if your pain wasn't physical? What if your ache in your back, the anxiety in your chest, the weight you carry was your subconscious trying to speak? What if your body remembers everything your mind forgot? And what if healing wasn't found in another prescription, but in remembering who you truly are? What if trauma didn't have to be your life sentence? What if freedom was already within you, waiting to be unlocked? Every week on The Subconscious Healer, we ask questions most people are too afraid to face and reveal the answers your soul has been waiting for. Join us as we take you beneath the surface, into the nervous system, the subconscious, and the unseen patterns shaping your life. Because healing doesn't happen from the outside in. It happens when you remember the truth of who you are. The Subconscious Healer, you're not broken, you're just ready.
G'day, Dr. Roberts. How you going?
Doing fantastic. It's great to see you, Daniel.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's been a while.
It has. It's great to connect with you, and I love the conversations we have. So
Yeah, I think we've had two.
a
I
couple,
think,
yeah, a couple,
yeah.
yeah.
I think you were on my podcast and you returned the favor at some point, but I think it's probably been at least a year since we've probably spoken like this. So,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's great to see you. I know that your journey has been very powerful, and you've done some great work, research. Your book, Can You Catch a Cold, is really eye-opening and a must for anyone that is still kind of under the impression that the microbes are the problem and all of that.
Hmm.
Um,
Thanks.
so I just would like to ask you, what has happened in your life that's kind of become a turning point for you to kind of, you know, go into this investigation, kind of lead you to the journey and mold you into who you are today? Is there a point in your life whenever something shifted, something changed to make you go in this direction? And what would that be?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there was a specific turning point. I feel like I've always been like this. I think from a young age, I've always questioned things. I never really agreed with the things I was told at school and people in places of authority and all this kind of stuff. And I guess I didn't really question a lot of things publicly until 2020 when more people started doing it. And I thought, well, it's a bit more accepted now. And I started looking at things more critically and realized that basically everything I thought I knew was in need of desperate reevaluation.
Yeah. So 2020 um, kind of woke you up a bit to going more public about the things that need reevaluation.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I had a pretty big awakening in 2014 and realized a lot of the things that people are starting to realize now. But back then, I mean, there was nobody around sort of with these perspectives that I knew in my real life. I think I knew one guy in real life. So I just sort of went along with it, you know, never really said anything, just thought that if I say anything, I'll probably not be able to advance in my career, and still was under the illusion of that whole system. Thought I had to fit in and just toe the line and do whatever you need to do to make the money to get the mortgage and go down that path. But I don't believe in any of that system anymore. I look at things very, very differently.
How so? If you don't mind just sharing some of that.
Yeah.
So you don't believe in the and I don't either, but I'm curious. I'm just kind of curious what kind of system do you think what guides you now versus kind of the status quo?
What guides me now?
What system?
I think our ancestors had things worked out pretty well. They managed to live relatively well for a long time in harmony with nature, and I think they were far more connected with the world and reality than we are now. I think we're very disconnected. So I look to a lot of history. Not that I can trust much of the history, but I look at the way that people used to do things. So like natives and these kinds of things. So that's sort of where I get some of my perspectives from, and just being outside and just observing now. I think that's where a lot of truth lies. I think nature holds a lot of the answers that we're looking for. It's just that we think that we're separate to it and we don't spend much time outside. So a lot of the ways that I think now are informed by just observing, taking the time to actually just pay attention to the world around me. And yeah, I only had that opportunity when I quit, when I basically left the system. Instead of working 60, 70 hours a week, I quickly found myself one day just having an extra 60, 70 hours of time up my sleeve each week. And I spent much of that outside, just down at the park or walking by a river or something like this, and just paying attention to the world around me, and started thinking about things very differently.
So you mentioned our ancestors um, had a better connection, had better, were living better. And then you mentioned that history, but there's been a lot of history that's been, you know, uh, plagiarized and modified and things like that. Um,
Mm.
to make us see maybe a history that wasn't there, or exaggerate certain things to make it appear differently than perhaps it was. Can you go into that
Mm.
a bit?
Now, I think one of these things is this idea that disease has always been with us,
Mhm.
and I don't think it has. Like I don't I don't trust any history prior to about like anything that we're told about the world prior to the late 1800s. I'm very skeptical of, and one of those reasons is that I I don't know of anybody in my life who was alive before that point in time. So when I was a child, I had a great grandmother, and she was obviously alive at that point in time, and I had some interactions with her. So I can, with some confidence, say that the world was probably somewhat similar to the way that we're told at that point in time. But before then, I don't know anyone who was alive. So I've just got to take the words of what is written in a textbook or a history book and just don't trust it. So, I mean, even uh, like what will be written about the history of 2020 in the future,
Mm.
what happened then? I don't think like many
Right.
people will question that. And I was alive to experience that, and I don't I don't agree with what the history books will say about that event. So
Or
yeah,
what they're, not to interrupt you, or what they're already starting to kind of say about what that event was, it is different than actually what it was, what we experienced, right? So um
I actually think it was a that 2020 was an absolute blessing in disguise. But see, a lot of people will look at it and go, "Oh, it was the worst thing that ever happened." But for the way that I see it, I go, "Wow, that was." I'm so glad that it happened, because it really did change the world, I think, for the better. So yeah, I think one of the big things for me is that there's this idea that nature is imperfect, and that humans are built imperfect and we can't exist in harmony with nature. It's sort of a war between us and nature. We're separate to it, and it's out to get us, and then we're out to get it. And that the human body can't exist in harmony with its environment or its surroundings, and it evolved or it was created imperfectly, whichever way you want to look at it, and so that we've always had disease. But I just don't think that's true from what I can understand. And I look at like anthropological research where doctors went out into tribes or anthropologists went out into tribes and observed these people and documented what they saw. And one of the reasons why I think that there's probably some truth to what's said in those textbooks is that there are still people alive today that live that way, who are completely isolated from the world. And people can go and visit those tribes and see what's going on for themselves. And certainly there is some like modern day research that looks at the health of these tribes just living away from society. And the field of medicine is fascinated by them. They're going, oh, we don't understand why they're so healthy and they're so resilient to disease. But I think this is the way we always used to live. And now, when just being conditioned now to believe that disease was always with us, it's always been this bad, we're just getting better at diagnosing it. And when we take that perspective, we don't look at what the true causes of illness are. So I think, yeah,
So the so the
there's
so the disconnect of nature is a big piece of that, right? What are some other pieces that you think how our, I'll say, civilization, what are some other ways that you think to really contribute to this proliferation of disease?
well, people
Nature's
say
probably the
money's the
nature's probably the big one, but what was the other one? Money?
well, people say money's the root of all evil, but I actually think it was agriculture. I really think it was agriculture. Um, because before agriculture, we were basically living off the land, and there was only a certain number of people living in a certain radius that nature could basically support. But then when you create agriculture, now all of a sudden you can have far more people on a piece of land than otherwise could be supported. And now we're at the point where there's orders of magnitude more people living uh, on a continent or in a country than is physically sustainable. And we're just under this illusion that's given to us by modern society that it's all good, it's all okay. There's no problems with that. And this system is infallible and it will keep going like this forever. And it's nothing that we're doing that's creating any of the problems. It's all just random and it's Mother Nature. There's so many illusions, Gabe. There's so many illusions. I mean, things like government and tax and laws and medicine and health and history. I mean, so
Right.
much,
I mean,
so much.
it's almost like it's almost impossible to kind of even analyze and pick out how much of it is illusion, but you're right. Everything is, like you mentioned, everything is just one big lie, in some way, shape, or form. Even the history. I'm sure you've heard about the Smithsonian at one point they burned it down and they wiped out a lot of history. Um, I don't know the full story of it, but I know that there's been a lot of things that have been hidden from us when it comes to history, and certain books been altered for us to have certain points of views that perhaps um, weren't accurate. Many things that many things that I believe that were influenced when it comes to history is always on how bad it was. Is that correct?
Mm.
Is that what you'd agree with?
Yeah, they call it like the Dark Ages.
Right. And
It's
the
this idea
depression.
that, yeah, I mean, I'm not I don't know what happened once upon a time. I have no idea. Maybe what's in the history books is correct, but much of me is very skeptical about what really transpired in our history. I think a lot of this is designed to keep us distracted from what's really important. And this is what the whole system is predicated on, is that we're consumers and that we don't feel complete and whole as a human being or soul in this existence. So we're always looking outside for things to fulfill us. And we think it's the car or the boat or the house or the marriage or the friendship or the whatever it's going to be, the new shoes. There's this illusion that that is the thing that's going to make you happy, and it's sort of given to us through various different mediums. So people chase that ad infinitum until their last dying breath, and they realize, oh, actually, I never truly achieved wholeness and happiness in my life. It wasn't any of those things. So it keeps people distracted from finding true happiness and finding out who they really are and finding true meaning and purpose in their life. And ultimately, what that does is waste your life. You get to your last day here and you look back and go, what did I actually really accomplish here? You know, I mean, you can't take any of the stuff that you accumulate in your life with you. You can't take any of that.
Right.
But this is what people focus on, and I think it's a very reductionistic, mechanistic way of viewing existence, much like how medicine views the body. But yeah, without those illusions, and when you come to the realization that when you turn inwards and you can find wholeness and happiness inside, and you can get to a point where I think you can be that way most of the time, where you are lacking nothing, you are feeling very content, very whole, and very happy. This is certainly a state that people can achieve. That's a big problem, because people who feel whole and feel like they are lacking nothing or wanting nothing, they don't make good consumers. They're now like
That's
money
true.
means nothing to them. It's very hard to wage war, right? You can't put a gun in someone's hand who is of that existence, of that being, of that of that being, and say, oh, here's a gun, I want you to go and shoot that person now. It's like, no, I don't need to do that because I don't have any hate in my heart. But when you have people who are totally disconnected and they don't know what they stand for and they don't realize that they can be happy and they're searching outside for something else to make them whole. I mean, this is how the monetary system keeps working, and this consumeristic society keeps working, and why wars and things get waged. I mean, it's
Right. I agree. I agree
it's
with you.
deep.
I agree with you. The consumption, and that's why I think many of the things that we view, the TV shows and the media and the general message out there is one of um not breeding that wholeness, but breeding the emptiness. And whenever a person feels empty, they consume without reason. One of the Just one example that I've witnessed whenever I work with doctors or professionals, I ask them this, and this is just a kind of an arbitrary example of this point. If you know anyone that has bulimia, ask them what's in their closet. And what you'll find is hundreds of pieces of garment with the price tag still on.
Hmm.
It's like they've consumed and they bought and they need these shoes, need this hat, need this scarf, and they consume and
Hmm.
consume and consume, not just with food, but with material things, because they're falling into this, and they're a little deeper into the trap than maybe others, but many people are in that trap. So how does someone begin to recognize, Daniel, how does someone begin to kind of go inside and almost fill that void? Because it's a void that's encouraged, I think, inside of us, that we're grabbing and trying to fill that void. How does somebody begin the process in your findings to try to start to fill that void?
Trying to fill that void, I think, is, some may say, is the cause of all our problems. When you don't need
Right.
to fill that void anymore, a lot of these problems, I actually think we create most of our own problems. We are the cause of that. And it's possible that that stems from being disconnected from nature. Because I think when you are connected with it and you move, you're not distracted by things out there. And you're not, like, maybe you spend a lot of time in nature, I'm not sure, but like people go out and they like to surf, or they might like to bike ride,
Mm.
they might like to go fishing or whatever, or they like to go camping. It's always these outdoor activities that people like to do. Why do they like to do it so much? I think it gets you into the zone, so to speak. And when
Right.
you're in the zone, it's where you are getting closer to connecting with who you really are. But you can't be there when you're distracted by shiny things, or you're distracted by stuff on the social media, or you're distracted about things that might happen in the future or have happened in the past, and your mind's everywhere else but the moment. And when you start to shift into the moment, all that energy that you've been using, like exerting, and just like, it's like just like an leaky tap, just pouring out all your energy, dedicating it and devoting it to these things that don't matter. When you go out into nature, you start to live in the moment, and your mind just sort of switches off, and you're just fascinated by all the things that are around you. And you have to be switched on when you're surfing a wave. If you're not focused 100%, you can wipe out and smash yourself on the rocks. So you've got to be in the zone. It's like when you're playing a musical instrument, or they see some of these amazing feats that are done in the Olympics. Like, people are in the zone. They're not distracted by things. They're 100% in the now, in the moment. And I think that's our natural state. When we're actually outside living the way that we're meant to live, we are always, or predominantly, in the moment. So all that energy that's being expended on other things that don't matter starts to build up inside us. And from my own personal experience, when you allow that energy to build up inside you, you connect with, I don't know what you would call it. Some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it God. Some people call it source energy. Some people call it Shakti or prana or chi or whatever it might be. There is
That
something that
was
you
that was
connect
my
with.
that was my next connection. That was my next question. Yeah. So continue, please. I agree. The connection to a higher source of some sort when you're with that nature.
Connecting to pure consciousness, maybe. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we really are, is pure
Hmm.
consciousness. So we've got like this illusion, or this perception of self, of who we think we are. And we get caught up in that. That's our mind, that's our psyche. And that's not complete. That's incomplete. So it's always searching for things to try and make it complete. And this is why we're so easily distracted with shiny things. But we forget that we're actually pure consciousness, and we are just observing the mind. We are conscious of the mind, of the psyche. And I think when you start to focus and use concentration, or however you want to get there, meditation or being out in nature or whatever it might be, yeah, you can activate this. We're not really even activating it. I think it's always there. We're just disconnected or distracted from it. You can reconnect with who you are, which is pure consciousness, and you go into a state of pure bliss, essentially. And when you get to that point, I've been there a couple of times. Um, this whole existence takes on a very different, I don't even know what you call it. It makes you question. what's actually real. Because when you're connected to that, whatever that is, and you have that feeling of wholeness and completeness, to me, that feels like reality.
Mm.
And then when you leave that state and you come back here, you're like, oh, actually, no, this ain't real. This is not reality. It's just this. It's like a
Almost
like
like,
a construct or something that we're in.
right. Almost like freeing yourself from the allegory of the cave, right? Plato's allegory of the cave, when you finally climb out and
Yep.
you see what reality is. Yes, I spend a lot of time in nature every day. My house actually is nearly off the grid. I'm hooked up to
Fantastic.
electricity. I'm hooked up to electricity, and I don't have livestock and things like that, but I get a lot of healthy meats from local farmers that are grass fed and things like that. But I'm
Yep.
surrounded by Ozark woods, and the at our core essence, we're non-physical beings.
Mm,
And at I'm talking about like at the subatomic level, right? And you can, when you're with trees and you're with nature and you're just walking around in grass and sunlight, there is that connection to something higher. And it's almost like automatic. And it may happen quick for some people. It may happen with a little bit of time. Years and years ago, they used to take people that were deranged, people that had kind of lost their mind, and put them in rose gardens, uh, and hospitals. They would take them out and put them in rose gardens, and the being around just nature would kind of reorientate that chaotic mind. So it's definitely very healing. And you can always tell, I can always tell, a couple times a week when we leave and we head in the town and we get to larger scale town, as we're going in, eating at a restaurant, getting groceries from places, you can always feel that. You can always feel the tension in the air. That's not in the trees. That's not in the nature. That's not near the lakes. Um, so getting exposed to nature is one of the best ways to kind of reconnect yourself. Is that correct?
yeah, I think it's one of the big pieces of the puzzle. But again, this is the way that society has been designed, maybe for a reason, maybe it's just coincidence, maybe it just eventuated this way and no one really had any say in the matter. It just happened the way it happened. Maybe there were nefarious intentions behind why we ended up in this particular scenario that we're in now in the Western world. But people are essentially being removed from nature. And as I said earlier, before I had left the system, so to speak, I hardly spent any time in nature. I didn't have the time, and nor did I have the inclination to do so because it was never on my radar. I was so, and I'm sure people will resonate with this. You get so caught up in the illusion. It's like
It's
I
alluring,
can't
right?
afford to not spend all my time doing all this stuff within the illusion because then I'm not going to be able to keep up appearances. Then I'm not going to be able to pay my bills or to save money to get a house and get a mortgage. And none of that stuff matters, right? And it's not until you just take a step back and go, hang on a minute, why am I doing all this stuff? And you give yourself time and then you go searching out there for other things that you weren't doing before. And you just notice something in nature and go, oh, isn't that interesting? And then it takes you on a different, like a path of self-discovery, or it gets you asking certain questions, or it gets you thinking a little bit differently to how you have been conditioned to think. Like the society railroads your thinking into a certain way, and you shall not think outside that perspective. Because if you do, then you're going to be considered a hippie or whatever it might be.
Right.
Um,
An outlier.
and people just identify with this. They fall into this trap, and it just takes them further and further and further away from what is real. What is real? And I think the only thing that is real or maybe it's not even real, but closer to reality is the moment. So the past, I don't think is real. I don't think the future is real. I think there only is the moment. So there's this illusion of time that's been invented, and again, that keeps us distracted and thinking about this existence in a certain way. And it's like it's all, I think, designed or just happened that way, per chance, happenstance, um, to keep us distracted from going in.
Right.
Once you go in, once you go in and you connect with that, it changes everything. Like you only need to connect with that feeling once, and then you want it again, and then you want it again, and then you want it again, and you want less and less and less of what society has to offer because you realize that
An illusion.
it's an illusion. It's not the answer. It has nothing tangible or meaningful to offer.
Right. So I'd like to ask a few more questions about something. I noticed that you did a recent debate with German New Medicine, a
Mm,
practitioner of German New Medicine, and um, I myself have seen some limitations in it. I've studied a bit and seen some limitations in it. Some things I agree
hmm
with, some things I don't agree with. But if you could briefly, for our listeners, just kind of point on the things uh, that that you didn't agree with, that stand out, that um, that don't align with health.
Mm. How do I keep this concise? Because this is a huge topic and it's a touchy subject. A lot of people get uh, very emotionally invested in this subject because when you start to talk about it, it challenges their reality and it challenges who they think that they are. And essentially, what I'm trying to achieve when I'm sort of having these discussions is getting people to realize that they don't have to suffer, that essentially, I'm probably going to put it pretty bluntly, but we essentially cause our own suffering, but we hold the solution to that as well. So we can create it, but we can also resolve it, and we hold the power to find or connect with bliss, true happiness, Valhalla, heaven, whatever you want to call it. And I guess there are various modalities out there that make spurious claims that I think keep people in that perspective of thinking that they are their thoughts, they are their feelings, they are their emotions, that things just transpire in their life and it will manifest as a emotion which just gets repressed or suppressed and then it causes illness and they have no say in the matter. It's just this thing that happens. But um, I don't necessarily believe that. I think really what it all comes down to is our perceptions and our beliefs and the lens through which we view the world, all of which are, and our assumptions as well, those kinds of things, all of which are within our control. So once you understand that and you realize that you're not a victim of circumstance, then take the power back. You're not a victim to just something random that could happen in your life. And that event is like it comes with a label. Like there is a bad event or there is an event that causes you to be sad or makes you happy or whatever. But I don't, I think this is like an oversimplification of what's really going on. I think we put the label on it and that label that we attach to it is done with our conscious mind, our psyche, which is basically our ego, and that all comes from like the culmination of our lived experiences. But we attach with that and we think that's who we are.
Right. And
So then when
that
something,
is a big dissolution. Right.
yeah, so this is where people fall into the trap, because then they identify with those things and then they live that existence for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They think that they are their lived experiences. They think they are their feelings, thoughts, emotions. Um, and they hold on to all this stuff inside them which I don't think actually serves any purpose, not like any purpose that I can think of that makes any rational, logical sense. And they become completely, they can identify completely with this concept of self. But then someone comes along and says, hang on a minute, that's not who you are. And your beliefs and thoughts and feelings, you're actually in control of those things and you can change them. And any of the stuff that your perceptions of the world, which you have basically used to put labels on things that have happened that cause internal suffering, you don't have to do that. You can change that yourself and free yourself from any of that internal suffering. And yeah, I don't think people like to hear that, because it means in order to do that, you have to let go of a piece of who you think you are. And if you've lived a certain way for 10 years or 20 years and someone comes along and goes, hey, there's a different way to do this. Oh, I can't do that. I don't know any other way to live. I've only ever lived this way. So it's like a lot of fear and uncertainty and things around it. And I was like that too for a really long time, until I realized that there's another way. But yeah, that was sort of like, this is my main point, or my main sort of idea or concept that I'm toying with at the moment. And I might be wrong. I don't know. Just toying with it. But it's vastly different to the idea of G&M, where they're saying like someone will have a disease and they'll say, oh, that was due to a conflict. The shock from the conflict manifested itself within you, and that's conveying some sort of adaptive response or survival benefit, which is meant to help you. Um, and they talk about these things being biological laws. Now, I don't think it's necessarily a biological law, because simply by changing your perspective on something or your beliefs on something unravels that whole story that's being crafted around it. So if it was actually a law, it couldn't like easily be dismantled by just a simple change in a perception or a belief, which I don't even think are real things anyway. Like they're just these intangible
You
things. So
talking about
this is
laws?
this is deep.
Are you talking about laws itself? Well, I mean, I'm just curious. I like deep stuff, and this is my world that I live in, and I'm forever a student, right?
Mm.
Um, I'm curious, Daniel. I just want to ask: have you yourself had, like, would you consider yourself somebody who had childhood trauma?
Once upon a time, I thought I did,
Okay.
but I don't anymore, because I changed my beliefs. I changed my perspectives. I changed the way in which I look at the world. So yeah, like once upon a time, I was 100% victim. I was depressed, and I
Okay.
don't think there's that many
So you
people.
had depression, right? Depression.
I had health, like physical health problems and depression and anxiety and like some pretty bad stuff going on. And I don't think there's many people alive that get as low as I ever was, because those people don't live to tell the tale. They take their own life. And I was essentially going to throw myself off a balcony one day because I just didn't want to be here anymore. I was just suffering internally, like emotionally, and also suffering physically too with all these health problems. And yeah, I mean, I identified with all sorts of stuff, trying to justify why I thought I was the way I was. And then I got put onto some really interesting material, which essentially changed my life. And it just got me thinking about things differently. And I've never looked back. So I like when I talk about these things, I think a lot of people go, "Oh, it's easy for you to say because you've never experienced this stuff." It's like, no, I've been through the ringer. I know what it's like to suffer. But I can hand on heart say that it was me causing it. I was doing it to myself. And when I realized
Right.
that I could stop that and I could end my own suffering and create happiness from going inside, then it all changed. And I don't look at, and this is the other thing, Gabe. I mean, sorry if I'm just probably darting around here so much, but there's a lot to this. Um, I think we try and rationalize what happens in our life. So we look at things in isolation. We look at an event in isolation and go, that event was bad. And that event, I'm going to attach a certain feeling or emotion or thought to, and I'm going to attach to it and I'm going to hold on to it for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe we do it because like a self-defense mechanism, or we're trying to do it for protection, or I don't know. I don't know what the
Right.
reason is we do it,
Maybe,
but we don't have to do
may,
it.
right. Well, maybe here's the thing, maybe a temporary survival, um, uh, protection, like you said, maybe a temporary survival, coping mechanism, I think is what happens to it all. If we're talking about trauma, those things happen to us in the moment to survive something that's overwhelmed us when we didn't have the capacity to deal with it. And maybe at that point we inherently attach a label to it. We think it's us, which is a big mistake. We think it's who we are, and we do. This is what I teach my doctors. The conscious mind is a rational lying brain, because when
Mm,
people come to us, they always have a symptom and they have a story. And the story
mm.
has no the story is a lie, essentially. Person comes, they're obese, they want to lose weight, and the rationale is, I eat too much, I'm eating too many carbs, I'm not exercising enough. And that's their rationale. And the real reason that their mind has created that physical manifestation for them is essentially body armor. Something happened to them when they were young. They had a boundary violation, and they're manifesting that as kind of a way to protect themselves. Now, it can happen many different ways. I have seen a woman that couldn't do a particular exercise. She was having trouble doing a certain exercise, and every time she would go to do this exercise that she was getting paid money to do, um, a certain cheerleading move, okay, she had no idea why she couldn't do it. There was just some fear, some block. And when we get down to regressing where that came from, she's 3 years old getting molested by an uncle. So she had no idea why. And I think that these things that happen to us are coping mechanisms. And it can ruffle feathers to tell people that, you have control of this, and in a way that it, I think people operate off an illusion of, they think the trauma is them, and they think their memories are real, you know?
Yeah. And like this so-called bad thing happens. We look at it in isolation and we go, I didn't like the way that that made me feel. And so I don't want it to happen to me again. So I'm going to develop all these behaviors and mannerisms and thought processes and irrational thinking so that I never have to deal with that again. But in order to never try and, like, I mean, from the get-go, you can't control the things that happen in your life. You have no control of what goes on out there. You've only got control of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and whatever. And so you go forward in your life with all these behaviors and thoughts and irrational thinking going, I don't want that thing to happen to me again. I didn't like the way it made me feel. So I'm going to do all this stuff. But by doing that, you're constantly reliving that thing that happened to you however long ago. So not only did it happen to you once, it's happened to you 1,000 times. And, there is a different way to live. There is a different way to exist. And because we stay detached from how we should really be living, our mind is always everywhere but the now. Of course, it's going to be focused on things that happened in the past or worrying about things that might happen in the future. But when you bring your attention and focus back to the moment, well, you've actually got to use your willpower to keep your focus there. And now you don't have the energy to use it focusing on these other things that aren't real anymore. And look, I'm not trying to belittle people's suffering. Like, yeah, people or people's lived experiences, people go through stuff, but you don't have to keep suffering throughout your whole life. Um, I mean, there is another way. And the other thing I think as well is that, like, I think this is a point I was trying to make earlier. We look at events in isolation and we don't look at things on a continuum. So we don't understand,
Mm,
and maybe we'll never be able to
mm.
truly understand that everything is interconnected. So when one thing happens, the next moment something else is happening. And for that thing to happen, the thing that preceded it must have happened. And everything in the chain of events that follows that thing that happened had to happen that way to get to that point. So, like, there's like good things coming out of bad things and bad things coming out of good things, and it's just the flow of life. And like, I'm not even convinced that there are good or bad things that happen. I think this is just a way that we try to understand reality. Like, people might point to, say, a bear eating a fish.
Mm.
Oh, that's a terrible thing. Well, how is it a terrible thing? Because if the bear didn't get the fish, well, now the bear dies. Or maybe the bear had to feed its cubs. Maybe that fish at that point in time was about to jump on another little fish, but then the bear saved that little fish from the bigger fish and it got a feed. So it's like there's all these things that are happening that we don't see the bigger picture. We just look at this one thing, we attach to it, we put a label on it, and we just then replay that thing in our mind and we try and rationalize why it happened. And we look at it as bad, or we put whatever emotional or label onto it, and we stay trapped there. And we hold on to this baggage and we refuse to let it go. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
we tend to look at the little square instead of kind of looking at the whole cobweb itself, right? Like you
yeah.
could zoom out and just see the entire spider web. That is true. We tend to do that as people and not look at the full picture.
But this is how I think people can start to think about changing their perspectives on life, um, by being grateful for each and every moment that happens in your life, because A, we don't know why things happen, and B, if we get out of our own way, those things don't actually have control over us. Like, that's it's we allow those things to have control over us, and we allow our psyche, our ego, to start taking control of the ship. But it's actually the slave to who we really are, the consciousness. It's just
Right.
that we don't realize that we are the consciousness and that we can exert our willpower over the ego or the psyche to keep it in its place. We just let it run wild and we have all these thoughts and feelings and things going on. We go, oh my God, my life's a mess. And I'm reliving all these things. It's, no, you've got to go inside and you've got to start putting the time and effort and you've got to put the work in to start exercising that willpower. But it's a difficult thing for people to do. They don't necessarily want to do it or have the inclination to do it. It's like good health, right? If you want to be healthy, you got to get out in the sun and eat good food and exercise your body and get sleep and rest and whatever. And for some people, I couldn't be stuffed doing that. So they end up sitting on the couch eating chips and playing computer games and drinking alcohol and they get obese. I just couldn't be bothered. So it takes effort to do these things. Um,
So Daniel, as a professional that an educated professional who has went through transformation, that's the thing that's why I was asking. Because I think that what gives you the a credibility to assist others is yourself going through those dark times and making yourself out of it. That's what gives you that's what gives you the credentials beyond a book or beyond reading a study or beyond attending a class, as if you yourself, like you were talking about, being really low yourself at one point, realizing you had the tools to change it yourself,
hmm,
gives you the credibility to help others. So let me ask you, as a professional who has went through some transformations in your life, what how do you know when someone's really ready to transform?
I think people are always ready. People say, "Oh, I'm not ready yet. I gotta wait. I've got to wait until I'm evolved or I'm enlightened or I'm spiritually mature or I don't know what they're waiting for." You got to make that conscious decision. Yeah. It's like if you want to go to the gym, oh, I'll go next Monday. Oh, no, next Monday comes. Oh, I'll do it the month after. I'll do it. And next Monday never comes. So I'm just going to wait for the motivation to come. Now, the motivation comes after you start. So, like the first time you take yourself down to the gym, you're like, all right, now I'm going to go against this feeling inside me, is this procrastination. I'm going to exert my willpower over my psyche, which is causing procrastination because I'm comfortable doing whatever I'm doing and I don't have to step outside the comfort zone. You go down to the gym once and then more motivation comes. So the motivation doesn't necessarily come first. So yeah, people are ready now. You just have to want to have that conviction and make that conscious decision to do it. Um, but
So
again, like
for
this
so for
is,
somebody so for somebody that's had some suffering, and I do believe there's a difference between pain and suffering. Um,
yeah,
pain
of
is
course.
pain is like a temporary discomfort during the moment of transformation. Because no
Mm,
matter what, when you are transforming, I will say, uh, going through those transformations yourself from the from the low that you had into becoming who you are, there was a lot of painful things to give up that old um, perception, to give up your old self, to give up what was familiar. There's moments of pain to do that. Of course, the reward is much better, and that's really what we go after. You said that you were in a depressed time, even considering throwing yourself off a balcony at one point,
mm,
and then you came across some information that helped you. And that's exactly what happened with me as well, right? I was
mm,
addicted to meth at one point. I was even breaking into people's houses at one point.
mm,
Um, so very low time. And I came across information like you did. And that information was, you don't, it's not out there. It's something in here.
mm,
It's a change going within. And one of my first, not the first, but one of my first mentors that taught me that was Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor, with his way of saying that your subconscious controls your vibration. And if you can get your vibration in harmony, everything in your life will start to change. And I realized it wasn't me having to go out and try to make something happen. I just need to work harder on the inside. Well, during that process, and I'm sure that was the same for you, there are moments of pain when the old part's kind of dying away, when the old person that was the depressed, low person was dying away, there's moments of pain, but it's temporary. And then the reward, you start to see it and you go, oh, I want more. Ooh, I want more of this. I'm seeing it start to work, almost like the gym. That to me is what pain is, where suffering is choosing to stay where you are. It's a choice. You choose to stay where you are. You choose to stay on the couch with the potato chips, right? Even though I could do better, but you choose to, I won't do, I'll go next Monday, right?
Yeah.
So how does a person get past that barrier? Is it just willpower alone, or is there information? Like I believe the conversations that you have and that you share with people are to help people break free from suffering in some way.
Mm.
That's what my message is to teach people to break away from suffering. That's what we ultimately want to do. That's what we're here doing, right? Because right now we're talking about getting connected with nature, how important that is. It's free. It's something that is innate in all of us. It gets you connected to that higher mind. And if you're in a city, just go to a park, go for a walk on a sidewalk. There's sidewalks that go into trees. If you can't get surrounded by nature, get around parks and trees. And that's, that's a worthy substitute when you're in the city, right? Um,
Yeah.
but how can someone who's ready to take that first step, what would you tell them?
Uh, well, I think a part of this is realizing that whatever you think has happened to you in your life previously that was hurtful, um, isn't who you are, and you don't have to hold on to that. You don't have to attach to it, because one day when you change your perspectives, you will look back on that suffering and that time possibly as the best thing that ever happened to you.
Mm,
So this is the thing. It's like, oh, I don't know if I really want to change, because if I leave that behind, I'm not going to, I don't know who it is that I'm going to become. So
right.
there's this fear around it. But um, I mean, this is what happens when people are in the suffering and they're creating this suffering and they're in this emotional turmoil. They could never look at it from that. They could never step back and go, actually, one day I'm going to look back on this and be so grateful for it happening, because it forced me to take that first step. And that's essentially what happened to me. I had to get to rock bottom where there was nowhere else to go, because I dug my heels in like, no, 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 no. I'm not getting motivated. I'm not changing. I'm a victim. Something happened to me, and this is the reason why I am the way I am. And then I was standing on that balcony and going, okay, I have a choice here. I can go off, or I can go inside, literally inside. So it required me to get to rock bottom, but you don't have to get to rock bottom. It's really up to you. It's just the nature of where my decisions took me. But I am very grateful for being at that low point, and it is a blessing in disguise. And this is quite often what happens when you hear people's stories and you go, "Oh my God, that's a horrible thing that happened," and for them, before they realize that it was actually a true blessing in disguise, yes, they look at it that way. But you can move past it, and one day it will become possibly the best thing that ever happened to you. But yeah, each person's trigger is going to be different, um, as to when or why they make that conscious choice. Now, when I was heading towards the bottom, my wife said to me, "Hey, Dan, you should read this book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment." And
Mm,
I went, whatever. And I just thought it was all BS. And then I went to rock bottom and I thought, right, there's nothing else for me to do now. It's either like you do the unthinkable, or you have to do something different. And one of the first things that I did was read that book. And when I read that book, I had to read it a couple of times for it to make sense to me. But I essentially realized that I don't need to suffer, or no one needs to suffer. And the answer is actually very simple, but it's not necessarily easy. So maybe if there are people out there listening to this and they're not sure what the first step is, that book might be a really good first step. It's a long read, but it's definitely worthwhile. And you may find yourself reading it 3, 4, 5 times. But the overarching message that is given in that book is incredibly empowering. And it's changed many, many people's lives around the world when they act upon the message that Michael Singer's giving. So
It is a great
yeah,
book. It is a great book.
that's awesome.
What is the overlying message of that book? Like the surrender experiment. And I've noticed it in a lot of spirituality books of transformation, where real transformation takes place. The the big message is, and I'd like you to share with what you got from that book, but I think the big message is about surrendering. So what did you get from that book that really helped you?
I got so many things from it. So many things. Maybe the biggest thing that I got was that I, as I said, I could rattle off maybe a dozen things, but the biggest one was helping me to find inner happiness because I didn't know how to do it before I read that book. And the way that I got there was by using my willpower to focus my mind on the moment, appreciate what is going on in the now, and to stop exerting energy on things that don't matter. And when I did that, I was doing lots of meditation and nothing ever happened. But when I started doing that, so I'm meditating, but I'm not being conscious in the day. I'm letting my monkey brain go all over the place and worrying about this and that and whatever. But then when I started to use the power of concentration and focus and willpower to bring myself back into the moment, I was able to utilize the energy that I was wasting on those other things to basically build up inside me. And what it allowed me to do was to connect with consciousness, which is the thing that I am, that is aware that I am aware.
Yeah.
Now, I know it sounds a bit airy fairy, but essentially, when I got to that place, it's like people might have, they might be familiar with the chakras, right? And Kundalini
Right.
rising and this sort of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like when you're not in control of your mind, you're not exerting willpower with your consciousness, which is the master, that energy can go wherever it wants. But it's really easy for it to go down. So it descends down into these lower emotional states and you're in this fear or sadness or whatever it is. But when you exert the willpower and you bring your mind back into the moment and your energy is not being wasted on other stuff, it builds up inside you. So it essentially you have that Kundalini rising, you go up through your higher chakras and it sort of, it's a weird thing to explain, but you have this surge of energy like chi or something that builds up inside you and it allows you to connect to consciousness. And
Right.
then you feel this amazing sensation of wholeness and oneness. And some people describe it as pure bliss or love, or it's like, I don't know. There's nothing in this reality that I've experienced that comes close to it. Um, some people call it heaven, but I only was able to get to that point after reading Michael Singer's book, because I was doing all the meditation and it was doing nothing, because I didn't realize what the purpose behind the meditation was. And I didn't have the energy inside myself. I hadn't accumulated that chi throughout the day, so that when I did the meditations at night, I could get to that point. Um, yeah. I guess the other thing as well is like, um, another big thing that I got from his book really helps me on my journey towards manifesting things. What I learned was that the world outside us, we're told that it's essentially random. That there's this world going on out there, and we're just this insignificant little speck of dust, and there's just
Right.
stuff happening, and we're just there observing it all, going, "Oh shit!" But what I actually think is going on, and I'm not sure, but
Talking
I
about
think
like
what
kind of
might
the
be going
mechanistic
on,
view. Is that what you mean? Kind of like a mechanistic material view of the
yeah, it's
outside
just like
world.
random events transpiring, and there's like no rhyme or reason to it, and you're just the passive observer. But uh, after reading his book, like his message is to basically not get invested and not attach to thoughts and feelings and things that come up, because they're not you. And when you're in the moment and you just allow experiences to happen, it just flows through you. So you're not grabbing on and holding on to stuff. And at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I've got all this stuff inside me and I'm feeling all messed up inside. And you might attach to that stuff for 10 years. But once you start just moving into the moment, and as each thing happens, you just allow it to happen. And you're just in this flow state. Um, you sort of get out of your own way. And that was a really important stepping stone for me in this whole thing to do with manifesting, because really simply, you can use the power of your mind, your consciousness, to imagine something, and then things will unfold for you to reach that thing that you imagined, if you just allow life to transpire. And if something happens and you go, oh, I don't like the way I don't like this thing. Oh, I don't like it. And then you start to put resistance there, then you're self-sabotaging yourself from getting to that thing that you imagined, because you're putting a label on this event that you don't like. But actually, it's a necessary thing that you got to go through to get to the thing that you're sort of trying to envision. Um,
So his book helped you learn how to manifest better. And a big part of that
yeah.
was getting out of your own way, right? Which
Yeah,
which is
because
kind of
when,
which has come up a couple of times. But go ahead.
yeah, as soon as when you get into your own way, it's kind of like if you go into a restaurant and you put an order in for something, it's going to come. You put the order in, it's
Mm,
coming. All you
right.
got to do is just sit there and allow it to come out. But if you start second guessing and going, oh, when's that order coming out? I put it in 5 minutes ago. I wonder if they're making my thing. And you get all riled up and you go into the back of the kitchen, you start making a fuss. Are you going to get your meal? You started abusing the chef, or like whatever you're going to do, you're not
Yeah.
going to get your meal. So it's the same thing with life. And I think our external reality is like a mirror. It's like a reflection of what's going on in here. I know that sounds really crazy to a lot of people, but again, we think that it's all just random and we're just in this
We're
whirlwind of
helpless.
stuff going
Yeah, we're
on.
helpless essentially, right?
Yeah, but I don't think we are.
No,
I
me
don't
neither.
think we are. I think that we can actually, well, I know that I can, that I basically create my own reality because I did. Like, I'm not going to get into the story now, but I did. I essentially changed my life and I did it through these very basic, simple things.
And that's essentially and same thing. Same thing for me. I know this stuff is real. I know this the mirror, your what your outside world is a mirror to your inner side. And it's the same with illness too, right? Like what you're talking about. Um, but you essentially created your own reality using these basic things. And those basic things were visualizing what you want, um, practicing that, use your own willpower to not put attention on past events or future worry things, essentially ordering a meal without fussing and everything like that, but putting your mind very clearly on what you're wanting and doing it from the present moment, and then just allowing things to happen. Correct?
Have you ever seen the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey?
I have not.
I think there's a lot of truth in movies and they put this in our face, but it's hidden. We just look at it, go, oh, it's an interesting comedy. But in that movie, it's essentially what
Is
I'm
it good?
talking about. Yeah, it's cool. But if you look at it as a movie for entertainment and comedy, it's okay. But when you look at it deeply and you really read into the story, there's magic in these movies. If you actually look at what they're trying to tell you, it confirms all of these things. And essentially, what it is that he manifests anything he wants by getting out of his own way. Now, it's really interesting. Like, if you envision something that you want, the universe, I think, basically says, sure. I think it basically has to, because, again, the consciousness that is aware that you're aware, who is really who you are, is that universe.
Right.
Right? It's all the
Yep.
same thing.
It's all the same thing. Mhm.
So you just exert the thing that you want and it just comes into reality. But see, you put the thought out there, you go, this is how I something that I desire or whatever it might be. And I'm not really into materialistic things. So I don't necessarily I go more for experiences. That's the things that I try to manifest rather than I want $1 million in my bank. Um, and the experiences come and it just takes you on this amazing journey. But see, when you put the order in, you have the dream, you use the power of imagination. If you get in your own way, you basically cancel the order. So you might have the imagination one night, you wake up the next day, and then you jump in the car and you go off to work. And some guy cuts you off and you get stuck at a red light. And you go, oh, yeah, moron, you cut me off. How dare you? Now you're getting all worked up. And you're basically putting out a message to consciousness that I don't want the thing that I ordered. Because when you put the order in, it's like, no worries, we're taking you there. We're opening up a path. We're putting you in a boat. We're putting you in the stream and we're taking you right there. And yes, there'll be little bumps and waves and rocks and things you got to get around to get there. But if you don't react to those things, it's going to be a nice, smooth ride and just enjoy the journey on the way, regardless of what happens, whether you think it's good or bad or horrible or fantastic or whatever it is, you just allow things to transpire the way that they are transpiring. You just accept things for the way that they are, and you will get there. But when you react the next morning, you're just like, oh, this, yeah. The universe is going, hang on a second, hang on a second. I'm trying to take you to the thing that you ordered. Why are you getting all angry and upset? This is meant to be an enjoyable journey for you. You don't want this thing anymore? Okay, well, forget about it, right? So you basically
Right.
cancel your order. And this is a big thing, like with what Michael Singh is saying. It's like, man, a good way to start for people is to like deal with the low hanging fruit first. Don't go with the big things. Deal with the low hanging fruit. So if someone cuts you off in traffic, just be like, no worries. I'm really grateful for this guy cutting me off, and now I'm stuck at the lights because now I get to spend 10 seconds or a minute looking at my beautiful wife. And I'm just so grateful that I have that extra minute to spend with her because I guarantee one day there will come a time in your life where you're like, I wish I had just 1 minute left with my wife,
Mm,
right? So
right.
rather than getting riled up and angry and you look at this thing that happens and you're like, oh, this is a bad thing. He cut me off. It's like, no, 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 no. It was a blessing. I'm so grateful. Thank you for this opportunity to spend a minute talking to my wife. Or like you got to try and make lemonade out of lemons and look at everything as a blessing in disguise and be grateful for everything that happens and to be in the moment. So another thing, if your wife isn't sitting there and you don't get to look at her or whatever or hold her hand, something happens, a guy cuts you off, and rather than exerting the energy on this dude and letting
Hmm.
it all out, because remember, you got to keep that energy in because you want to build it up when you're
Right.
meditating to get to the point of happiness and bliss. You go inside. You become grateful and you show gratitude. It's like, I'm so grateful that my heart is beating right now and it's keeping the blood flowing around my body. Wow, isn't my body just amazing? I'm so grateful that that guy cut me off because now I've got a minute to actually think about that. And actually, it's really cool. That's a beautiful experience that I got to have today that I wouldn't have got to have if that guy didn't cut me off. Right? But if this guy cuts you off and you're using up that energy and you're getting angry, and then you drive another 100 meters down the road and something else happens and you're just reacting like that all the time, well, when something more substantial or significant happens in your life, it's going to be much harder for you to just allow that situation to unfold the way that it is happening. So try to deal with the low hanging fruit first as training for when something of more significance, more of the more troubling or difficult things in life happen, so that you're more prepared to get yourself through that situation and come out on top and not to allow it to affect you so much in like a negative way. Because ultimately, I made the decision whether or not I reacted that way when he cut me off. That was up to me. And
Hmm.
that's a really simple thing, a really simple analogy or example to use. And then you can apply that to bigger things. Some guy broke into my house. Some guy, uh, uh, um, somebody in my family passed away. Like some so-called awful event happened. It's okay to be sad and it's okay to feel the emotions that come up, but you don't want to attach to them and hold on to them. It's like you got a rucksack and then this event happens and it was a bad thing. Oh, I'm going to pick this rock up and put it in my bag and now I'm carrying it down with me along my journey. Eventually, you're going to get really weighed down by all that stuff that you're picking up along the way and holding on to for later. When the thing unfolds, just allow it. When the, when the guy is cutting you off, when it's done, I've forgotten about it. It's over. I'm not then spending the rest of my day going at lunchtime at work on, oh, that dude this morning, oh, gee, really,
Hmm.
and then you just waste your whole day. So this is like the grand overarching sort of concept of it all. It's quite elegant and beautiful when you look at it this way.
Oh, it does. Everything changes. And so the low-hanging fruit is dealing with the lower things first. The uh triggers, I guess you could call them. The smaller, more manageable triggers first, correct? That way you can prepare yourself for dealing with the larger ones that come up. Because tell me what your opinion is on this. Let's say you want to do a manifestation. You visualize what you want. You give thanks for having it. You give thanks that it's yours. And then you go on your day like everything's fine. Do you feel like the universe is going to test you, test your resolve, test to see if, not in a way of being like malicious, but a way of seeing, because this is kind of what I've learned is you can have anything you want, but you have to become the person that that thing can happen to.
That's right. You're
So
testing yourself.
testing yourself, right? So the universe will throw the guy cutting you off and somebody breaking in your house, things like that, maybe a loved one passing. And these are essentially ways for you to practice staying in that same wavelength of what your manifestation is, right? You can tell when you slip. Is it normal for people to kind of slip off that momentarily?
Of course.
And then it's almost like going down the highway and realizing you hit the rumble strips and making a small correction. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess if you go through your life on autopilot and you let your mind take control, and it's a mess in there. Like it's always going on about random stuff and talking this and that and all this nonsense. Um, that consumes you every minute of every day, and it may have done that for 10 years. Now, what might be a good way to make the first step is to see if you can be present in the moment for 1 minute tomorrow. I'm just going to do for 1 minute when I wake up. I'm just going to spend a minute where I am focused in the moment. And it could be like, this is why they say focus on your breathing. It's like, I'm just going to focus on my breathing. And you're just giving love to yourself. Like, thank you, body. So glad that I woke up today. This is freaking awesome. You're so amazing. Thank you for everything that you do. And you're just in this state and you're there for 1 minute. And maybe the next day it's 2 minutes, and the next day it's 3 minutes, and the next day it's 4 minutes and 5 minutes. And then after a year, it's 360 minutes. So it's 6 hours of a day that you're in this state. And you're not as affected, you're not as easily affected by things that happen. And it's beautiful. It's amazing. And like, I'm not perfect. I'm very far from it, but this is why they call it mindfulness. Like this is something that you have to constantly do. It doesn't just become autopilot. This is something that you have to put your concentration and time and attention into. But when you do that, you get a reward. There is a reward for you using that power, that willpower, exerting the willpower over your mind and not allowing it to take the reins and take control of the ship. And that reward is being happy, which is ultimately
Right.
what everybody wants. Like
Right.
when people go, oh, I want to manifest. Well, what do you want to manifest? Oh, $10 million. Why do you want to manifest $10 million? They're only thinking that their mind is telling them, but when you have the money, then you'll be happy. But you're going to get that money, and I guarantee you're not going to be happy. I guarantee you're not going to be, maybe you're happy for a day or a week or a year, but it's not going to be lasting. That happiness will go. So this is what we're really after is being happy inside. So I guess you could
Right.
think of all of what we're talking about as training yourself to be happy. And it's not really that hard.
Training yourself to be in the present moment,
Yeah.
right? Training yourself to get out of the way. And you can
Yeah,
tell when you're in your way, you can tell you're in your way because your mind is throwing all that stuff as around. It's just scattering, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the mind will also fight when you go to be that present moment. That first minute you said, just start with a minute. Your mind is going to really put up the worst fight almost then, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like a
That
cigarette.
is when you want to. Sorry, go on.
No, like a person who has decided to quit smoking cigarettes, the minute they decide to, that's when they want the cigarette the worst, right?
And that's when you have to exert your willpower. That is when you must be exerting that willpower the most.
Mm.
Like when you don't want to be doing the meditation, that is when you should be doing it. Like that, that's the ultimate time when you should go, right, okay, I really don't want to do this. Yeah, you're in a state of major resistance. You know, there's another way to look at all this as well, Gabe. Um, if somebody offered you $1 million in your bank account right now, but you don't get to wake up in the morning, would you take it?
Oh, hell no.
10 million?
Nope.
100 million? A billion? Is there any amount of money that someone could offer you that you could have in your bank account right now, but tomorrow morning you don't wake up?
No.
Okay, so what that means is every day that you wake up, we are essentially given a gift worth, it's priceless. It's a
Right.
$100 billion in your bank account every single day. Now, if that was happening every day, wouldn't you just be like, yeah, woohoo, yeah, all right, I just won the lottery, this is amazing. But it's happening every day. Like, you should be waking up with this energy of just cool, man. I can't wait to see what today brings. It's $100 million day. It's going to be full of surprises, and I can't wait, regardless of what happens, because you're just so grateful for being alive. Um, if you had 1 minute left in your life, would you? How much of that time would you waste worrying about the guy that cut you off in traffic this morning? How much of that 60 seconds would you waste worrying about him?
None of it.
How much of that time would you waste worrying about what Tim Smith said to you in grade 10 that when he called you an idiot or he bullied you? How much of that last minute would you waste worrying about what he said to you?
None of it.
Like, I could give any example.
Right.
How much of that time would you be wasting? And the answer is always going to be none, because in your last minute, you're going to, I can't speak for everybody, but it would be something along the lines of, I want to spend it with the people that I love and the people
Yeah.
that I care about. And I want to go outside. I want to, to feel the sun on my face one last time. Or I just want to feel the grass beneath my feet again. Or I want to feel the embrace of my loved one. Or like this is where your attention is going to be. So, first thing is, we don't know when we're going to leave this place. We could literally leave here in 1 minute.
Hmm.
Like anything
Right.
could happen. There could be
Oh,
a
yeah.
freak meteor coming through and crashes in my roof, and I'm done. So, if I've got only a minute left, but I don't know, well, we just said we're not going to waste even a second worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. So, why at any moment are you wasting time worrying about things that aren't relevant? Now, you could extend that to your whole life, right? How much of the time that you have left do you want to spend worrying about things that don't matter? A day, a week, a year, 10 years? People say none of it, but I guarantee you that most people will waste the majority of that time worrying about stuff. They're literally wasting and throwing their life away. And then say you go to the doctor and they say, you're gonna die tomorrow. You got this thing that's just gonna end you tomorrow. You'd be like, oh, I just wish I had another year. I wish I just had another 5 years. But you wasted 10 years worrying about things and you weren't present in the moment and you weren't grateful and you weren't. You see what I'm sort of getting at here? It's like
I do. And
every moment counts.
here's the thing. I was going to ask you this question. I was going to say, if the world could understand one thing about healing or growth, if any listeners could understand one thing about healing, growth, manifesting things in their life, that they're overlooking, that they're missing, what would you say that would be? And I think you've already answered that beautifully. I think you answered that beautifully. And you know, is there any amount of money that you would take to not, you could have right now in your bank account and you could do what you want until midnight tonight, right? And the answer is no. Well, then that means every moment to you is essentially priceless.
Mm-hmm.
And money is one of those things that's replenishable, but time is not. Every moment,
That's right.
time is evenly distributed. Did you ever know? You ever think about time? There's nothing more freely and fairly distributed out to everyone than time. But
Mm-hmm.
one moment past is one moment you have less.
That's right.
So I think that was a beautiful way of sharing something that people can understand and get behind to start applying that. Because this is a practice, isn't it? You don't get to where you are by understanding this, being in the present moment, getting out of your way. You don't get there in 30 minutes. It takes practice. It's almost like you're putting your hand on your steering wheel, and that would be the willpower. You're not just, Earl Nightingale once told a story when he was riding in the back of I think a cab, and he was looking out his window and he noticed this massive earth moving machine, like a big mining truck or something, moving a tremendous amount of lots of earth, watching this machine from this tiny little cab. And he looked up and there was a little tiny area where this driver was sitting, one little tiny driver sitting in this massive machine. And he marveled at it for a moment and he thought, that's a good metaphor for mind and how people's mind operates and how they operate. You have this thing that has a vast amount of power, vast amount of capabilities, and yet we're sitting there with our hands folded, just letting the steering wheel kind of do its own thing, rummage randomly, demolish a neighborhood, wipe out a couple of towns or cities or something. And it's because we're not using that effort, the conscious effort that it takes in practice to use that willpower and grab that steering wheel and point it in a direction that's meaningful to us.
I've got a
Correct?
great example that it might resonate with your listeners. I might have actually even shared this with you once before. I don't know. At the height of COVID in Australia, it got really bad. And
Mm,
there was a point of time where there was some reprieve. So we were only allowed to go, I think at one stage, 10 kilometers from our house or 20 kilometers. It wasn't
mm.
very far. And we thought, oh my God, we're never going to be able to basically go traveling again. So at one point, they opened up the state and they said, right, you can travel wherever you want now. So me and my wife said, okay, we're going to jump in a camper van and we're going to go up and do a road trip all the way up the east coast of Queensland. And we did that for 3 weeks. Now, that was a time when we were basically outcast from society. We couldn't get into anywhere. We didn't wear masks. We didn't do the checking in thing. So we were basically, outcast.
You
And it
and
was a
you and her
difficult,
decided. I'm sorry, just so I'm clear. You
yeah.
and her decided that you're not going to fall into the stuff. Is that what you mean by the outcast?
Yeah,
Okay,
we chose not to do any of that.
right.
So yeah, I mean, daily we are dealing with dirty
Bombardment.
looks and
Yeah.
like
Mm.
walking into a petrol station and getting dirty looks or people yelling or whatever it was. No, where's your mask, you
Right.
idiot, and all this sort of stuff. So I mean, it was not a very pleasant experience, and I guess I let that affect me more than I should have. And when I was on this trip with my wife, I mean, we were going to some beautiful parts of the world, the east coast of Queensland, all the way up. So just some
Mm.
stunning places to see and amazing people that we met. But that whole trip, I was always thinking about when's the thing gonna come? When's the event gonna happen that makes me happy? When's it gonna? I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. Second day, third day, fifth day. I'm like, oh, when's the thing? Or maybe it's tomorrow when I go to this place. And I ended up essentially getting to the end of that trip disappointed.
Mm.
I thought, far out, that thing, the moment never came. I was waiting the whole trip for this thing to happen to me to make me happy, and it never came. What a waste of a trip. So this is, I think, 2020, like end of 2020. So I was just beginning to get into all this stuff. Anyway, we get home, and my wife, she's a videographer. So she's always taking videos and photos and all this sort of stuff. And we get home, we sit down on the couch, and she pulls out her laptop, and we're going through the photos of the trip. And we, like, even now thinking about it, I get a bit teary, but we're sitting there and we're going through all these photos, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, oh no. I literally start breaking down because the moment that I was waiting for was every single moment.
Yeah.
There's a picture of me standing on this um, uh, headland overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and it's this beautiful blue sky. And I've got my little
Mm.
brand new baby puppy dog with me, and it's my wife right there. But when I looked at that photo, I knew I wasn't happy because I'm sitting there going, when's the thing going to happen? When's the thing? And it's right there in front of me. So I essentially wasted that whole trip, Gabe, because
Mm.
I wouldn't get out of my way and I wouldn't just appreciate what was in front of me in the moment. Now, that could very easily transpire into my whole life. So I get to my last day and I could look back at my life and go, oh shit, all the stuff that happened, it was all amazing. And now I have regret that I wasn't really truly living it and experiencing it. So don't let your life get away from you. This is why I sort of harp on this point of being present, being appreciative, being grateful for everything. I mean, it's just if you don't, your life will just pass you by in an instant, and it will be over. And one day you will have regrets. And I don't want to have any regrets about my life anymore, which is why I try so hard to sort of practice this perspective and yeah, it definitely changes your life for the better.
And it is a beautiful perspective. And much like we talked about earlier, some of those things are meant to teach you. So I imagine you looking at those pictures and having that breakdown, you're like, you know what? All right, I realized what I did wrong, and um, it changes you, you know.
Mm,
And you're right about how important that is. I've just for example, money's not going to make you happy. You were saying that earlier. Um, I have had some mentors that were worth $100 million. And one of my things I do in our psychosomatic university is I learned how to use ancient methods to diagnose people's face. You can look and you can see repressed emotions or traumas that still affect them show up on the face. Once it's resolved, it goes away, but it's still having some impact in their life because that belief, that memory, they're still associated with it in some way, right? Or
mm,
they, or that they've learned that that emotion is dangerous. That's when people have repressed emotions, it's because their brain has learned that that emotion's dangerous. They were forbidden from having it one time, and it's not that they need they need to hear that, hey, you don't have to accept that anymore. You can do something else. And sometimes it takes a little bit of training, a little bit of understanding, a little awareness. Otherwise, they don't know. The problem with traumas is many times this was definitely the case for me and the clients I work with. There's a part of them that doesn't know it's over. There's a
mm,
part of them that doesn't know it's over. And just having that awareness and saying, hey, whatever shit you went through, man, you survived it. You're here today. And that can be liberating in itself, right? But I've had mentors that are worth $100 million. And when you see somebody that has a line right here, a big, deep line, that's a line that shows that there's something's not enough. Something isn't, and it could be material, it could be emotional, it could be something. And I've had these mentors worth $100 million, and all they talk about is, we got to go out and build, we got to go out and do this, we got to get this in this deep, deep, deep line. And I can just say, you're just not satisfied with your life at all. And thank you for the nuggets you've given me, but it's time to move on, um, because they're not even able to appreciate what you just pointed out. That
Mm.
beautiful moment of saying, oh, look at the Pacific Ocean and the blue. And I was stuck on something else. And man, I was looking for that. When's this thing going to be over? When's this event going to take place? And it doesn't even hit you till you see the pictures, but you have the awareness of going, okay, I know what I did wrong, and consider it corrected to where you are much more aware of holding on. Now you got the gloves on, you're holding on to that steering wheel of staying in that present moment versus letting it carelessly kind of drift away.
Yeah, because if you don't do that, like I could look at that photo and I wasn't actually really there.
Yeah.
My physical body was there, but me, the real me, the consciousness wasn't there. It was off thinking about something else. Well,
Yeah.
it actually it was there, but it was being distracted
Right.
by the monkey brain. Yeah. So I think that's another reason why you sort of look at those photos and you get emotional because you realize that you weren't really there. It's like, when you go on a holiday, well, basically most of my life is kind of like a holiday now, but
That's
when you're
fantastic.
working yeah, it's
That's how
beautiful.
you want it.
Yeah. But when you're working that sort of job, that slave job, and you're there 5 days a week and you get maybe 2 weeks at the end of the year, and it's like the night before you have to go back to work, and it feels like you never had a holiday at all.
Oh,
Right?
right.
That's sort of how I felt when I went on that trip. It's like I wasn't I wasn't there. I my body was there, but I wasn't there. And that's like when time just slips away through your fingers and you feel like, man, is time speeding up? No, time's
Mm,
not speeding up. You're just not being present. And I think another positive out of all of this that we're talking about is when you do start to shift your concentration, your focus into the present moment, time actually slows down.
yeah. Yeah.
So you could be out doing something in nature, and I don't wear a watch or anything anymore. Sometimes I've got my phone with me, but I could be out there and I'm thinking, look, it's got to be at least 12 or 1 in the afternoon because I've been out here for a while. And then I might go up to the house, or if I've got my phone in my pocket, I'll pull it out and have a look, and it's 10. But
Mm,
I've only been out here for an hour and a
yeah.
half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're conserving those precious moments,
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you're essentially extending the value you're getting out of each day by doing that. But yeah, when you're doing all this, when you're immersed in all the stuff, it doesn't matter. It just, you can be at your computer working all day. And this used to happen for me at the university. I just sit down and I would just start typing up lesson plans or presentations or finding some research articles or whatever it might be, doing a specific task. And I'd look up from my computer at the clock and go, oh shit, it's 2 in the afternoon. I didn't even get up for lunch. Like 5 hours just went like that.
mm,
Like such a waste of
right.
a life. And uh, 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 another thing, I don't know, we probably need to wrap this up soon, but just one last thing is that sometimes people feel trapped, or they become trapped because they're living in fear of taking a chance and acting in congruence with who they really are and what their heart's telling them to do. So they can be sitting
Right.
at that desk going, I really don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be here.
Mm,
Something else that I want to do. But they never make that decision to just stand up and go, you know what? I'm done. I am going to make the conscious decision to change my life and see what happens, where life will take me, and just allow it to do so. And I know that's a really scary thing. It's a very scary concept for a lot of people, and it was for me because I did it. I actually did that one day. I was like, I've had enough, and I was in the worst financial situation I'd ever been in my life at that point. Didn't have any money. I was in my eye up to my eyeballs in debt. I had heaps of bills, but I was in a really good paying job. I thought, you know what? Stuff this. I'm not doing it anymore. And when I did that, because I'd been doing all this manifesting in the background and the mindfulness and the meditating and everything, there was all this stuff in escrow waiting for me, but it couldn't come
There was
in
all this what?
until
Say that one more time, please.
there was stuff in escrow waiting for me.
Okay. Okay.
But because I was in the job and I was in this
Mm,
lifestyle and I was the full-time university lecturer, that
mm,
stuff couldn't enter my reality because I wasn't able to accept it in. I hadn't basically become the person who I needed to be to allow it into my life. But the second I quit that job, all this stuff just started flowing out of nowhere. Like literally, if someone said, because I had a list I had a, we had vision boards and positive affirmation posters all through the house. And I actually think all that's doing is just activating your power of belief. I don't actually think that that stuff has any magical power. You're just doing it and you're believing that it's going to work. And when you harness that power of belief, it sort of does a lot of this stuff for you. But um, I had a blackboard on my wall of all the things that I wanted to have achieved. It was like pay off credit cards, get a house, no mortgage, block of land, have like a farm with animals,
mm.
and um, I don't know. It was like
Yeah.
financial freedom, lifestyle freedom, all these things. Now, the week before, I was looking at that going, you know, if I just save X amount every month, I can be there in 6 years. All right, well, it's only 6 years. So I was focused on the how. I was like, how is this actually going to happen? But as soon as I was like, no, I'm just getting out of the way, the next week, every single one of those things was ticked off the list. It didn't take
Mm,
6 years. It took
yeah.
like 6 days. But actually, it probably did take 6 years because I was doing all the work leading up to it with the manifesting and the mindfulness and the power of
And a
belief and all sort of stuff. So,
and a big part of that too,
yeah.
Daniel, it just intervene is getting out of the way too, isn't it?
Mm.
Getting out of the way and just letting it happen versus trying to figure it out. Because I think the more you try to figure it out, the more channels you can block, right?
Yeah, it's well, when you're asking the how is this going to happen? So
Yes.
if you put the order in, if you have the thought, using the power of imagination, which I mean, you could do a whole podcast on imagination. People just take that for
You like Neville
granted.
Goddard stuff, just out of
Yeah, it's awesome.
curiosity. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's brilliant.
it is.
I listen to him every night.
Yeah. I've been listening to
Um,
Emmett Fox lately, you know. Um,
I don't know him.
uh, Golden Key. Just try Golden Key on YouTube. Emmett
Okay.
Fox, same thing. But again, one of these brilliant minds that knew the power of getting the local mind out of the way and tapping into the non-local mind, which is the universal mind, infinite intelligence. And so I've been listening to Golden Key. There's different ones, but find the one that's around 8 minutes long. It's great.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out. Um,
But yeah, you were saying using the imagination when it comes to manifesting, using the imagination, putting the order in, getting out of the way.
yeah, there was something I was going to say. It's sort of escaped me now.
I didn't mean to
Um,
sidetrack you.
no, it's that's fine. Um, it'll come back to me. But yeah, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on the power of imagination because it's something that we just take for granted, and there is so much power to that, but we lose that. We don't exercise the power of imagination as we grow up because we're told it's just a childish thing to
Mm,
do.
yeah.
And when you become an adult, you don't do that sort of stuff anymore. You're an adult now. You're mature. You don't use the power of imagination. But that is essentially the thing that
Ch-
creates the thing that you want. Now, I did remember what I was going to say. It was about the how.
mm.
So when you use that power of imagination, and I think you got to keep stuff broad. Don't go too
What do you?
specific. Like, I want the
Oh,
red
right.
Porsche with the
Yeah.
blue rims and this
Right.
kind of radio. Like, you go too specific, and the universe then has to do so many things to make that happen. But if you
Right.
keep it broad, then it's much easier for things to come in. And if you focus on the how, it goes, oh, imagining the red Porsche. Yes, the red Porsche. How am I going to get it? Well, if I take on a second job and then I can do that, I can save this extra money. I'll have it in 3 years. That's how. So then the universe is like, all right, you want it in
But
3 years? Cool.
you
Cool.
got it. You got this.
Here you, here you go.
Yeah.
But if you don't think about the how, then there are a million, trillion, hundred, quazillion possibilities that the universe can bring it into your life through ways that you would never even imagine. Now, just as an example of this, I mean, once upon a time, not so long ago, if a bill for like $800 came in for me, I'd be going, oh shit, how am I going to afford this $800 unexpected bill? And this is in the early stages of the manifesting stuff. An $800 bill came in, or something around this figure, and I thought, oh yeah, cool, all right, I know it's there. Money will come, always comes. There's always just money turning up in my bank account. I'm not even going to really pay much attention. And I think it came in like a month before it was due or something. And then it's like the day before, or maybe 2 days before the bill was due, and the money still wasn't there. I was like, oh, that's all right, it'll turn up. The next day, I get a payout for like $800 from a class action that I'd signed up to maybe 2 years prior, um, in regards to something to do with my bank. And it's like some insurance thing that wasn't done properly and they owed you money. So that
Mm,
there was a class action against them. And I got paid out the amount that I needed to pay this bill, but I'd forgotten that I'd even signed up to this class action. So if I was sitting there thinking about how am I going to get the $800? Maybe I can go and do XYZ, or maybe I can borrow it from this person, I can pay it back. Now you're sort of restricting the way in which those things can come into your life. But because I was just like, no, I have faith. I have faith and trust that the universe always provides for me, that the money is always there when I need it. And even if that money didn't come in, it's like, yeah, it's all right. It's okay.
yeah.
Because for whatever reason that is happening, it's happening for a great reason. And I don't necessarily know why that is, but I'm not going to get in the way and start catastrophizing. It's a hard thing to do, to sort of let go and just allow things like that to happen. But um, now in my life, I'm at a point where I don't know, man. Like, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm I'm not worrying about money. Let's just
Yeah.
put it that
Yep.
way. I'm not saying that I have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in my bank. It's not like that. It's more that I don't worry about that stuff, and there's always enough. There's always enough, regardless of what it is that comes in to my life that I need to do. The money just comes, and I don't know how it gets there. It just does, right? I'm not actively really trying to do anything to bring it in. It just happens, right? I know it's a weird thing because we think of money
It's
as
here's the
such a
thing. It's
difficult
not.
thing to
It's
come by.
right. It's not a weird thing. I don't think what you're describing is a weird thing at all. I think that's the true gift that we have as divine beings ourselves that
Yeah.
we don't use. And I got to tell you, Daniel, this is a really pleasant conversation and a pleasant surprise to hear you describe these things, because it's a really good reminder. And I think that when it comes to healing, when it comes to improving our life, when it comes to manifesting things, we have to let it go to the greater consciousness, the greater mind, the divine, the infinite one, God, whatever resonates with that person. But there's some wisdom in certain scriptures too. Ask, believe, receive. It's written in the Bible. And many people don't ask because they don't feel deserving. They don't believe because they have too many conflicting stories going on deep inside their own head. And then they don't receive. And nowhere in those words does it say ask, try to figure it out, and then receive, right? So I think you're tapping into the great essence of which is our birthright that we forget. And it's really pleasant to have this. And I would invite you on again to just do a whole podcast where we talk about imagination and manifesting and things necessary. Again, if you're a person that's been able to manifest things that you want, and we always still are, it's still a process of just living life, but that makes you a qualified candidate for teaching others how to do it. There's many people that talk about manifesting and they're living miserably. Just like this wealth coach I was talking about, worth $100 million, doesn't have a fraction of the contempt that you have with yourself, the satisfaction. Who cares about money if you're satisfied, right? Like the Bob Marley, somebody was asking him, there was a poster or something about Bob Marley, and he was like, I'm rich. I don't need money to be rich. He was living a good life. So
Yeah. That's the illusion, hey?
that is.
The illusion is the money. And then when you're focused on that, you're not happy.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, this has been awesome. I'd love to do it again and just kind of go into the imagination and just kind of continue where we're going here. Um, thank you very much for joining me today. And um, how can people get a hold of you? How can people find your works? What's the best source for them to go to?
The best place to get in touch with me is on my website, www.humanley.com, Humanley. I'm on Telegram, t.me/humanly. Facebook, it's just my name, Daniel Roytas. I am on other platforms, but I don't post a whole lot there. Facebook and Telegram, probably the most two that I'm active on.
Okay, fantastic. I'll make sure that those are in the links for people. Okay.
Great.
Great to see you today, my friend, and I would love to continue this conversation another time. All right.
Yeah, 100%. Sounds great. Thanks so much. It's great, great conversation, Gabe. Thank you.